Have you noticed that these days in Nigeria, there's always one big headline after another, one endless scandal after another, one noisy distraction after another? Sometimes it feels like this country has become a giant WhatsApp group. Everybody's shouting, everybody's forwarding messages, everybody's angry, but nobody is making sense. The government does not simply fail to tell us what the truth is. They don't fail to only give us clarity, but actively manufactures confusion, using noise itself as a political weapon. There's a new economy in Nigeria today. Not oil, not tech, not agriculture, but the social media rant economy. A marketplace where noise is the currency, where attention is traded for likes, and where our collective anger as citizens has become raw material for manipulation. Have you noticed that these days in Nigeria, there's always one big headline after another, one endless scandal after another, one noisy distraction after another? Sometimes it feels like this country has become a giant WhatsApp group. Everybody's shouting, everybody's forwarding messages, everybody's angry, but nobody is making sense. That is not an accident. It's a strategy. The government does not simply fail to tell us what the truth is. They don't fail to only give us clarity, but actively manufactures confusion, using noise itself as a political weapon. Nigeria's politicians have perfected the art of distraction, and under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government, the game has been elevated to an industry where these noise are well funded, deliberate, and relentless. Look at the pattern since May 29, 2023. The first thing Tinubu did was to announce on live television, without a plan at all, that fuel subsidy is gone. No framework, no safety net, no strategy, just one sentence. The chaos that followed was quite predictable. Petrol prices tripled overnight, transport costs exploded, Nigerians were burning in anger. But after that anger, before that anger could even organize into a structured civic pushback, what happened? The government quietly introduced another headline in November 2023, the presidential yacht scandal. 5 billion naira earmarked for luxury yachts in a recession. Young Nigerians ranted on social media, hashtags were flying all over the place. And while we were distracted, the 2023 supplementary budget allocated 1.5 billion for vehicles for the office of the First Lady, a role not even recognized by the Constitution. And the 2024 budget continued this trend. Distraction is not a side effect for this administration. It is a tool. Fast forward to May 2024, Nigerians were still dealing with subsidy removal, electricity tariff hikes, and a naira in free fall. Suddenly, the government dropped a shiny new project. Out of nowhere, the National Assembly rushed to repeal Arise O Come Pentroid to bring back Nigeria We Hail Thee. Just think about it for a second. Lawmakers who cannot pass an electoral act amendment in 18 months changed the national anthem in 10 days. Why? Because it gave the kind of headlines they want. It took attention away from important issues. It gave influencers new content to keep young people busy. It set the kind of agenda they want us to fool around with. And while you and I were fighting on social media about whether the anthem sounds colonial or not, they were planning for more ways to distract young people. This is the industry at work. Crisis, distraction, rinse and repeat. Inside government, you have Senate President Godswill Akpabio smiling on national television when he revealed that a token had been deposited into senators' accounts. A moment that exposed how tone deaf these men and women sit alongside mass hardship. The supplementary budget that produced headlines about a presidential yacht was officially defended as an operational naval vessel. A reframe pushed back by presidency and his spokesperson. Even his ministers too were in on it. Outside government, you have influencers who parrot these distractions for clicks. The noisy online class of commentators and partisan influencers who amplify the spectacle, not as citizens seeking truth, but as players feeding off polarization. Consider Reno Omokri, who has veered repeatedly from a critic of power to a brand chameleon. One moment he prosecutes government failures, the next moment he defends Tinubu, leaving his followers tangled in confusion. And then there is Bayo Onanoga, once a respected journalist, now the presidency's blunt instrument. In debate over presidential aircraft, he deliberately escalated the discourse, asking if critics want Tinubu dead. A turn so theatrical that he drowned out rational scrutiny on public spending. What about opposition voices who fight every side battle but never organize citizen action around a single reform? Let's talk about one voice that is shaping civic space in ways that many young people are not paying attention to. Deji Adeyanju. His recent statements are not activism, they are narrative engineering for the ruling party. They are normalizing Tinubu's hold on power. And that is a civic crisis we cannot ignore. April 2024, Adeyanju tells young Nigerians that if elections were to hold today, Tinubu will secure a second term easily. There is practically no opposition in that. Fast forward to May, he doubles down, saying no social media talk can stop Tinubu from winning an election. That's not a neutral analysis. That's just a man who is consistently driving a pattern of messaging designed to do one thing: convince young Nigerians that Tinubu is inevitable, that resistance is pointless, that organizing is a waste of time. And here is why this is very dangerous. In a democracy, perception is power. If people believe that the game is lost, they won't even try to play. Adeyanju isn't just predicting an outcome, he is trying to manufacture an outcome for APC. He's telling young Nigerians that they should not bother, they should not organize, they should not fight for reform, they should just sit and do nothing because Tinubu has already won. This is how civic energy is destroyed. Not with bullets, not with police batons, but with words, repeated over and over until people give up even before they start. So let's be honest. When activists stop challenging power and start making power look invincible, they are no longer allies of democracy. They become enablers of the very system they once fought against. That is the role Deji Adeyanju is playing. And whether he admits it or not, it fits directly into Tinubu's strategy. Demobilize young people, fracture opposition, drown the country in noise and distraction. Some will say he's just being realistic. But when realism consistently favor the government of the day, at what point do we stop calling it realism and start calling it propaganda? Deji is just a case study. This is much bigger than him. It's about how narratives are used to cage our imagination as citizens. If you accept inevitability, you lose before you even begin. And that's why I keep saying that the biggest civic battle of our time is not against bad policies or corrupt elites alone. It's against stories they and their enablers tell us to make us believe we cannot change anything. The art of distraction in politics is never random. It's a science. Every government that fears genuine scrutiny know that they cannot silence the people by brute force alone. You have to overwhelm them with noise until they can no longer tell what matters. And that's exactly what Tinubu administration has been doing. Drowning young people with noise and distraction. If Nigeria has perfected anything in this digital age, it is the conversion of politics into noise. A flood of hashtags, clapbacks, rants, and theatrics that feel like debates but are in reality distraction. What we have today is less civic conversation and more of a political ranting. An endless circle of anger, memes, performative outrage, and contradictory hot takes that rarely lead anywhere meaningful. And who benefits from that? Certainly not the young Nigerians hustling through fuel queues and joblessness. The real beneficiaries are the political class. the professional noise amplifiers on social media who are either directly on the payroll of politicians or thrive on perpetual chaos because it keeps them relevant in the digital space. Social media, which was once the strongest weapon of young Nigerians, the place where we organized NSAS, the place where we challenged the arrogance of power, has become one of the biggest theaters of distraction and constantly used by the ruling party. Think about this. Instead of real civic education, what do we have? Endless rants about tribal supremacy, analogies about which tribe is more than which one, manufactured fights between social media influencers, paid hashtags cooked up in the war room of politicians just to keep young people distracted. And then we have commentators who say so much yet say nothing of substance because it is part of the game to keep young people distracted. Influencers, many of whom young people trust, often amplify the government distractions. And maybe it's not time to call names. The case of Deji Adeyanju, for instance, he built his name as an activist and a critic of government excesses. Yet, in the last 2 years, his rhetoric has become a masterclass in defeatism. He tells young Nigerians that no matter what they do, corruption will always win, and that Tinubu will always find a way to retain power in 2027. Now, whether Deji truly believes this or not, the psychological effect of these repeated messages is devastating. It cultivates apathy, convinces young people to sit back and accept their fate, and it serves the ruling elite by suppressing resistance before it even begins. That is the classic government distraction. And to be fair, young people are not just victims here, we are also participants. Many of us have become so addicted to the outrage on social media that we mistake venting for organizing. We mistake tweeting Nigeria is finished for civic action. And in doing so, we don't address issues properly, making it easier for those in power to escape scrutiny. The effect of this is profound. We are a generation already battered by unemployment, insecurity, and rising costs. And now we are being further destabilized by a constant distraction. When every issue becomes just another trending rant, two things happen. We lose focus and we lose hope. And a hopeless youth population is exactly what the ruling party wants heading into 2027 elections. Social media is no longer just our tool of resistance. It also has become government's most effective weapon of control. And that is why we must rise above the noise. Distractions don't succeed because government officials are masterminds. They succeed because Nigeria has been structured in such a way that our focus is fragile. First, there is survival mode. A nation where young people are hustling daily for food, transportation, and rent is a nation where sustained political focus is almost impossible. When survival takes priority, every new political drama feels like entertainment, not betrayal. Politicians know this and they use it. Then there is weak institution and no accountability. When a scandal breaks in developed democracies, institutions kick in. The courts, the auditors, resignations keep flying. But in Nigeria, it trends for 3 days on social media and then it dies with no consequence. Leaders know all they need to do is wait out the storm and throw in a new scandal to bury the old one. That's part of the distraction. And then you have the fractured civic space. Civil society is underfunded. Unions are weakened. Student movements are caged. And NSAS remains a scar that makes many young people hesitant to organize again. Without strong vehicle for collective action, distraction thrives. So when the government changes your anthem, when they spend 5 billion on a yacht, when they go through with a half-baked subsidy removal plan, they are not just being careless. They are cashing in on these structural weaknesses. They know your focus is already fragile. They only need to just push a little. So what do? How can young people rise above this deliberate circles of distraction. First, let's be honest. Nobody is coming to save us. Not the opposition, not even the so-called influencers whose timelines are already for hire. If you don't take control of your own focus, if you don't organize within your space, we'll keep running in a circle while the same men and women dying on our future. The antidote to distraction is not silence, it's focus. It's choosing as young people to decide what the real issues are: unemployment, insecurity, poverty, inflation, and refusing to be dragged off course. That means that when they throw in a new anthem or fake budget controversy in our face, we say, how does this connect back to corruption, to hunger, to job, to my life? If it doesn't, you let it pass. So we can focus on important things that really matter. Second, we need to build our own noise. They have their Reno mockeries, their Bayo Nanogas, their Festus Keyamo, shaping narratives for pay. Where are our own voice? Where are young people who can flood the timelines, the campus, the street corners with truth, not gossip? If you are waiting to be told what to say, you've already lost. Each of us is a broadcaster. Each of us is a counterweight. You have to use it. Third, we must keep receipts. One reason distractions work is because we forget too quickly. Imagine if every scandal was lodged, tracked, and resurfaced after 6 months with the same energy. Imagine if instead of moving on, we hold like a memory wall of betrayal, and every election cycle we throw back all of their scandals to their faces. Forgetfulness is their superpower. Memory is our own power. We have to use it. We have to keep reminding them that, yes, we remember when you laughed at us and say that you want to give your senators money. Finally, we must demand consequences, not by begging politicians, but by turning focus into pressure. Pressure is not one hashtag. It is consistency. It is 1,000 voices saying we are watching every single week. Pressure is what can turn distraction into accountability. Stay organized, stay focused, stay engaged. This is Civic Room with Menkiti, and I'll see you in the next episode.